Utah Senate candidate Mitt Romney is playing nice with President Trump, unlike during the 2016 election, where Romney lost to Trump in the Republican primary. This morning on Twitter, the president writes, Mitt Romney has announced he's running for the Senate from the wonderful state of Utah. He will make a great senator and worthy successor to Orrin Hatch and has my full support and endorsement! Exclamation mark. In response, the former Massachusetts governor writes, thank you, Mr. President, for the support. I hope that over the course of the campaign, I also earn the support and endorsement of the people of Utah. Joining me now, Genevieve Wood, Senior Advisor at the Heritage Foundation, a conservative think tank. Thank you for coming back to us.
Good to be here.
Let's talk about the president. Recently, he just announced late this afternoon that he wants to ask the Justice Department to draw up a memo talking about regulating bump stocks. We heard our White House correspondent Mark Irons talk about that earlier in the program, and this would be on all devices like that. This was proposed after the last mass shooting. Do you think this will go anywhere?
It's possible there'll be more discussion on it, but I think it's important, Lauren, to realize, there are a lot of laws on the books, many of which we now know, even if you're looking at the FBI, procedures were not followed. So it's great to have it.
And that's in the case of the South Florida shooting.
That's right. But there have been other instances where if you looked at, it's like, are we enforcing what's already there to ensure that more of these things don't happen? I think the problem is that politicians get accused of not doing anything every time something happens, and sometimes they aren't doing anything.
Right.
But there's a tendency to just want to rush out and pass legislation, say that we're doing something without really taking a hard look of would that have prevented what's already happened? What would it do in the future? What's already on the books that maybe we need to revisit and take a look at? So I think it's great that people are going to have a discussion. I wouldn't say yeah, let's rush to the floor and pass that, because I think we want to do something that we actually think is going to be effective, not just do something to say we're doing something.
President Trump is going to be meeting with students and teachers and state officials tomorrow, and I have been struck by all of the protests and the lie down in front of the White House with teenagers, and they're going to be having a march coming up here in Washington, D.C. on March 24th. Do you think this generation is going to make any headway in stopping mass shootings, especially in schools?
Well, I hope that they will do. I hope we will all work to do that. Look, I think many of the young people we've seen, it's very understandable how they feel scared right now. Many of those in Parkland, Florida have classmates who no longer are their classmates now. So I think we want to be very sensitive to that. Having said that, they have to be careful they don't get taken over by another political agenda that wants to frankly use them to try to push legislation that has not been proven to stop horrific things like what we saw in Florida.
And you're talking about
more
violence?
Gun laws. I mean, look, there are a lot of places that have very strict gun control, and they're not our safest cities in America. I think we want to look at what works, not what just looks like we're doing something. And again, we can pass all the laws we want. As we well know, criminals don't follow them. And so you can pass gun laws, and then a lot of times what happens is the bad guys end up with the guns. And unfortunately, like in that school in Florida, not enough good guys, not enough security guards had guns that could have protected more of the kids there.
Let's switch topics. President Trump is accusing his predecessor of not doing enough to prevent Russian meddling in the 2016 election. Is this the time to play the blame game?
Well, I think it's helpful to know what history is. And we were speaking about Mitt Romney earlier. If we remember back in 2012 during one of the debates, Mitt Romney versus Barack Obama, and Mitt Romney specifically said Russia is one of our biggest challenges. It could be one of our most potential and threatening our enemies. And the Obama administration, President Obama in that debate laughed that off and said, oh, Mitt, the 1980s are calling. They want their foreign policy back. Remember that? Mm-hmm. Well, maybe President Obama and his administration should have listened to that and taken more heed, because we now know that as early as 2014, before the 2016 election, the Russians were meddling. So I think it's important to know the history, because this investigation is looking at a specific point in it. I think we need to know the full scope.
Okay, thank you so much. Genevieve Wood, Senior Advisor at the Heritage Foundation.